Well, thank you for staying with us. In 2013, the Nigerian government privatized 11 electricity distribution companies, DISCOs, and 6 generating companies, GENCOs, while retaining 100% ownership of the transmission company of Nigeria as part of a wider strategy to reform the power sector and stimulate growth. Many years after the privatization of the power sector, citizens and industries still don't have a reliable supply of power. Although the country has an installed capacity of 12,522 megawatts, it's been only able to generate around 4,000 megawatts, which is insufficient for the population of 200 million people. According to the most recent report from the World Bank, in its Power Sector Recovery Program Opinion survey reveals that a total of 78% of electricity consumers in Nigeria receive less than 12 hours of supply daily, adding that 74% of the power users in Nigeria are dissatisfied with the supply of electricity across the country. The survey also shows that Nigerians are generally dissatisfied with the metering system as well as electricity tariff across the country. Now, across the country, the federal government, in an effort to end the current electricity subsidies by December 2021 and increase the power being wielded by the transmission company of Nigeria, TCN, from the current 4,900 to at least 7,000 megawatts of electricity. That's expected to spend about $3 billion on the energy sector in the next 24 months. However, industry experts say the Nigerian power sector will require substantially more investment of $100 billion over the next 20 years to achieve a reliable 24-hour power supply in the country. Well, joining me now live via Skype from the United Kingdom to discuss more on this and, of course, other issues concerning the power sector and particularly how it affects businesses. He is a research and agribusiness economist, Dr. Matthew Ojo. Dr. Ojo, thank you very much. Good afternoon to you.
Okay.
All right. This report or this comment by the World Bank, 78% of Nigerians below 12 hours a day power, that's one, and some are even dissatisfied with the entire network itself, and some are not happy with metering. It goes a long way. Tell me, how did it come to you? I'm sure you read through that report, and what do you think about it? Nigerians have disagreed, but that's on another part as we continue the discussion.
Well, you see, I don't think that should come as a surprise to anyone. You know, in early 2001, when the federal government liberalized the power sector, and then when we got to 2013 and there was a privatization, many of us were hopeful that eventually light is going to appear at the end of the tunnel. Unfortunately, the tunnel became longer and the darkness has continued since then. You see, we have a country that is blessed with natural resources, a country that is tagged the largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa, not able to generate power to meet the needs of its populace, of its citizens. You have a country with, the total installed capacity for generation stands, just like you read, between 12,500 to 13. At least the DISCOs claim to have 13,000 megawatts capacity. But then we've not been able to even transmit beyond 7,000 megawatts at most. And then, wherever the generation comes, is still the peak or the highest we've ever got is still sub 6,000 megawatts. And this is a country that wants to develop. This is a country that, as estimated by IMF, the per capita electricity production in Nigeria is less than 25% of the average in sub-Saharan Africa. So you can see the dilemma in which we are in, the difficulties that we are facing. So I don't think the report should come as a surprise to anyone. Okay. Now, for example, you have promises of they want to invest, they want to spend more, but we know that monies have been spent on the power sector over the years. Okay, for example, between 2011 and 2018, it is estimated that approximately like up to 1.16 trillion naira has been invested or poured into the power sector. Rather than getting electricity or getting power, what we see is darkness. So honestly speaking, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone. I'm sure some even think that is worse than what has been reported.
Okay, let me follow you up with this. Now, the federal government reacted and saying that it is unclear what empirical evidence was used in putting together this report by the World Bank, saying how did they arrive at all of these figures. So that's on the side of the federal government. But for me, I'm not looking at businesses that are even yet to break even. They are yet to even put themselves together, and they now have to go through this power themselves. What kind of business environment do you see us running at the moment with this challenge?
Oh, all right. So before I answer that, okay, you see, before you discredit or you claim something to be fake, you must have the original. What is the statistics that the federal government has to show to dispute this claim by the World Bank? Take a simple survey. Look at the number of hours that businesses run their generators. I'm sure if you take a simple survey of the number of households whose generators are on right now to watch your program, you will see that it's almost equal to what has been put out as the figure. So I don't think this is the time for us to dispute any statistics. The basic thing is that we don't have light, we don't have power. It's simple. Now let's come to businesses. Now, because we have constantly and continuously have unstable power source in the country, it has impacted negatively, all right, on the business community. That is not to even say, many businesses are not happy with the current situation. There was a survey also conducted by the World Bank as far back as 2014, okay? More than a quarter of those interviewed or surveyed identified electricity as the major hurdle in their businesses, okay? Now, if you look at that and just oppose it with the other issues that businesses are facing, you see an average businessman is groaning, is going through a lot. For example, there is a research and development organization in Berlin that gave a report in 2018 that says Nigeria spends 4.3 billion naira annually on small generators, and 2.9 billion of that amount is spent on fuel. So if you put the amount to purchase generator, to fuel it, to maintain it, add that to the cost of doing business ordinarily, you see that it places Nigerian business or business owners at a disadvantaged position. So if the impact of unstable electricity, you cannot overemphasize it. In terms of increased cost, okay, you increase the cost of production. For example, a report was given, I think 2 or 3 years ago, that 20 to 30% of banks, okay, their operating expenses is spent on diesel. All right, so you have cost increasing. It also impairs capacity because there's no electricity. Businesses are not able to expand. If they want to expand beyond the cost of the expansion, they also need to add the cost of getting a generator that will power such expansion. So it limits what can come out of these manufacturers, and that also impacts on the output, the GDP generally of the country. Then it also makes these businesses less competitive regionally. We are talking of AFCFTA. How can businesses producing in Nigeria, having to generate their own power, now compete favorably, for example, with a company in Ghana that gets power from the grid? And you know, generally the power from the grid is 5 times or thereabout cheaper than the one you get from a generator. So you see, our businesses are at a disadvantage already, even before we start all this implementation of AFCFTA. Then it also impairs, development and innovation. People are not able to think, because once they are thinking and they are putting plans down, the first thing that comes to their mind, there is no power. How do we solve that? And then because they are not able to, most of the times they just leave whatever development or innovation they have. So Tolu, we can go on and on to mention what about startups? Okay, there is a survey that was carried out. 57% of startups, they found that power outages is one of their biggest challenges, one of the biggest problems. So you can't talk about startups artisans that were into welding, that were into all these other businesses that require power, many of them are shifting into Okada riding. So you see, the effects the impact cannot, you just mentioned so many, and it goes on and on, productivity, efficiency, and eventually the problem is unemployment.
Well articulated. Now, another report following up with what you've said says businesses in Nigeria have lost 29 billion in dollars now annually due to erratic supply. Now, there was a time, I think, during when Baba Tunde Fashola was the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, there was this willing buyer, willing seller initiative that was on the likes of Sura Market, Ariaria Market in the east, some big markets, I think Sabongeri Market in Kano, were giving solar plants and they were able to generate, they left their generators and they were ready to pay more because they had better supply. Do you think we need more initiatives like this? Maybe first for our industrial areas, then maybe for big markets like all of these ones are identified, other ones in the country. Can that also be maybe a way out, at least for our business people?
Of course, anything that will help or that can help will do. But you see, Nigeria is that's why at times I'm wary, in comparing Nigeria with other countries, because the kind of dynamics that plays out in our country, I know arguably hardly exists anywhere else on earth. And at the root of that dynamics is you have debt politicking, you have greed, you have sabotage, you have nepotism and all kinds. So that is why some of these initiatives, on paper, they are good. When they are announced, you are happy. But when it comes to implementation, everything just torpedoes and you don't see them again. Now, the question is, look at how much has been spent over the years. How come we have not made so much improvement? Yes. Where else will such an amount have been spent on a particular sector and you will not see significant difference or changes in such sectors? So I, for one, think that such initiatives are good. But the question we need to ask, what has happened to them over the years? How have they not been able to transform situations to the point where we have localized power generations coming up to break down this stronghold that everybody has on the national grid? So I think initiatives are good, but we also need to bring them down to the people, like you just mentioned. What stops state government from driving investment in the power sector to provide electricity for their own state, for their own people, and then be able to attract investment in their own state? You see, we have a fundamental issue here, okay? If we need to move forward, we need to break down along the entire power value chain. Let states, subnationals come to see where they can play. The Lagos State example is there for all to see. So I agree with you, it can work, but the question is, how come we are still where we are despite all these initiatives? So there's something fundamental that needs to be addressed.
Yes, something fundamental. And one of it just came to my mind while you were speaking. Contractual agreements. Sometimes we really don't honor most of these agreements. If you see what happened with the power sector agreements, at times the discos will tell you they are supposed to also invest more in distributing electricity, but they will also tell you that government also has a role to play, and government is yet to also meet up with this and this. So everybody keeps maintaining different positions. So what will be the quick wins? Because this is our country. One way or the other, we must do better. We found ourselves in this. What should be done? The private sector has a part to play. Government has a part to play. But that synergy, where are we going to work it out so that we don't just keep working in silos?
Okay, let me take it from in 2017. We know the government came up with the National Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Plan. And if you look at that plan, the plan is aiming that the country will generate 30,000 megawatts of electricity by 2030. 2030 is just 9 years away. And then renewable energy will form 30% of that energy mix. That's we're looking at about 9,000 megawatts of electricity coming from renewable energy. Also, if you look at the economic sustainability plan, in that plan, one of the key targets there is that 5 million households, okay, that is about 25 million individuals who don't have access to the grid, will have access to solar, energy. So you see, government is thinking rightly. But I think the main thing we can do, one, is this. We need to improve on the expansion of our energy mix. There's no two ways about it. All right. We need to expand our energy sources, and focus beyond just electricity that comes from gas or large hydro power plants. What we need to look at, we have to leverage more on solar energy, wind energy, biomass fuel, coal, and even nuclear. You see, every state, for example, they're all looking at the national grid for electricity. And you have local areas which are blessed, with specific natural elements that can also generate power. Why are we not doing it? I think there's a laziness here that makes everybody think that if it doesn't come from the central, then it shouldn't come at all. We don't care. The federal government should give us this. So until we expand that energy mix that we're looking at, we may not be able to take advantage of our respective, how will I put it, the advantages that we have in our localities. I'm talking about the subnationals now. Then two, these subnationals should find a way of attracting investment through policies. There's a federal government policies about power. That policy, we need to look at it again. It's not working. It has not yielded the result. Okay? So if you have something you have placed to guide you through and it's not giving you the result you want, why not recheck it? Look at it again, review it. Call everybody back to the table. People, this thing is not working. We need to do something else. So we need to look at the policy and find a way of reviewing it and come up with something that's workable for everybody. Number three, we need to attract investment, using the PPP arrangement. Okay, so, and this also goes beyond just the federal government. My cry has always been, everybody blames the center. What happens to the parts? What happens to the states? So you can continue on and suggest, but there must be the political will for those who are leading. Nigeria has to get out of this darkness. I was listening to your conversation in the previous segment, and you're talking about productivity. And I was asking myself, where will they get the power to produce? You are talking of taking local advantage, producing locally with what? With generators or with power from the grid? Okay? On a funny note, I was watching an advert. A renowned cable producing company was advertising. I was just enjoying the song, okay? Until the advert came to an end, and my daughter said, "They are advertising cable. Where is the light?" So I laughed. Where is the light? You spend so much to buy the cable. Where is the light? Or, as we call it. So we need to start looking at these areas, expand, take advantage of what your local area can provide to generate electricity. And if we leverage on that, break it down, it's a huge problem, I agree. But when we break it into parts, we can at least address them little by little.
Before I let you go, Dr. Ojo, energy mix, I'm also a supporter of that. That's the way to go. Actually, at this time, we'll think of clean energy. But some say it's really not affordable. How affordable is it? The panels and all of that. People talk about all of these things and they make it look like it's a tall order.
Yes, it's not affordable. Let's say it's expensive. I agree with you. It's part of what I'm saying. Years back, I watched a documentary concerning a Botswana, I think, where the country came into that field and they played big. They stopped importing and invited a company producing such panels into their country. So when you go to the local areas, you go to the villages, every hut has a solar panel. That brought down the price massively. Okay, so I'm even afraid of saying that government should invite such companies into the country, because they will come to the country now and there will be no power to even manufacture what they want. So it's difficult here. Government actually can play along that line, find a way of subsidizing these panels to the point that houses can take advantage of it. And I think they are already looking at that, because like I mentioned, something you have it stated in the ESP, yes, the Economic Sustainability Plan. Yeah. Now, when that is done, you can bring down, but beyond power, we can generate, beyond solar, we can generate power from biomass. We can generate from wind. How come we are not leveraging so much on this? everybody's waiting on the one that comes from the grid. And once there's no gas to power, the entire country is in darkness. It's very unfortunate, Tolu, very unfortunate.
Really unfortunate. But I must thank you very much for your time. It's a very good way to leave it. I appreciate talking to you, research and agribusiness economist, Dr. Matthew Ojo, joining us from the United Kingdom. Thank you for your time. Regards to everyone.
Thank you for having me.